Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson, and man, I can't believe it, but spring football is already here. Texas Tech opened up spring ball Tuesday, and the media was invited out there for a portion of the practice. Now, when it's NCAA rule, when they start spring ball, when they start practice, they can't go. They're not in full pads. They're not hitting. So there was a lot of drills. There was a lot of like the basic football drills. And some fundamentals that you start out with in the sport. So, and even the offensive and defensive linemen were in a different portion area than we were at because, honestly, the weather was the type of day that most people outside of Lubbock, talk smack about Lubbock about. It was because it was wind gusting at 60 miles per hour. It was very cold, but more than it being cold, it was so windy that most of the practice took place in the Sports Performance Center, in the SPC, the indoor facility. Now, the linemen were outside in the wind because who cares, right? They're just going over the drills. But the quarterbacks and the receivers and a lot of the linebackers, DBs, running backs, all those guys, the skinnies, as Coach Hamby, the offensive lineman, Coach Stephen Hamby calls them the skinnies, were indoors. And the not so skinny, we're outdoors, but just the kind of way it's set up, they weren't trying to keep him from us or anything. We just didn't really get to see a lot of the newcomers, the new offensive linemen. I wanted to see some of the defensive linemen, man, I did see some guys that caught my attention. Dimitri Moore was the first guy I said, "Who is this guy?" And I knew who it was immediately because he was at the linebacker drills and just his size and everything. The transfer in, of course, he played for Coach McGuire back in the day at Cedar Hill. And has, because of like the being a super senior and the COVID and all the things that's going on in his career, he has this final year of eligibility to play here at Texas Tech, and I think he's going to play a lot. I mean, like I compare him to Christian Merriweather, who is like 6 foot, 240 pounds, that can run, and he looked equally the part. And of course, Moore was a all SEC freshman player at Vanderbilt. And had some things go on in his career, and then now he's back at Texas Tech, and I think he's going to be a really good player. Coach McGuire talked about him after practice, and that he looked good. He knows the defensive schemes, and he thinks he's going to be a good player for them. So that was good to see. There were Jermaine Bradley stood out. He's not a newcomer, but he has a new number, and he ran a sideline route, came over my way, and I'm 6'4", about 222 pounds, and he ran right up to me, and he was like a giant compared to me. 6'6". I don't know how big he is, but he's huge. He's just a monster. He's bigger than some tight ends out there. And he can run like a deer. So Jermaine Bradley is somebody definitely to keep an eye on. J.J. Sparkman looked really good running routes. He dropped one low pass. It was around his feet. It was I think it was a deep out or corner. I don't remember. And he said, "I'm 6'5". Come on, man." And he has a point. There's a rule: if it hits your hands, you should catch it, right? But he made some nice catches out there, and I think you want to throw high to those big targets at receiver. It's really cool to see SaRodorick Thompson out there with Taj Brooks. That 1-2 punch is going to be really, really good. At running back, Coach McGuire said he thinks, or Coach Perry, actually, Kenny Perry, the running backs coach, thinks he has the best combination in the country. That's what he said. You can make an argument if they can stay healthy. Both those guys have been explosive. They're proven running backs. Taj Brooks looks amazing. He's really filled out, but he's still running well. He is going to be a power. Both these guys have the ability to be power backs, but also can spring big plays. So, and I'll be interested to see how they grow as receivers. But in that regard, you have, first off, Cameron Valdez is a year older, and that's good because he has true talent as a runner at running back. I mean, I think he could really be the biggest home run hitter in terms of a real all-around running back. Attrition will happen. SaRodorick's been nicked up a lot. So has Taj Brooks in their careers, which happens to running backs at this level. So Cameron Valdez is a guy to keep an eye on because while they have Xavier White and Chadarius Townsend, these guys are going to play some running back, don't get me wrong, but they're also going to play inside receiver. I think Coach Emmett Jones, which it was good to see him back out at Texas Tech practice. He's back. He mentioned that if they started today, Xavier White would probably start at an inside receiver spot. Opposite Miles Price, another guy I think is going to be one of the best players. He's probably going to be one of the most recognizable players this fall. He's a returning inside receiver. Very quick, very elusive, good hands. He's already made some big plays for Texas Tech in the past. Thinking about that corner route that that catch he received from Donovan Smith against Iowa State, that was a big play. But he's a proven guy, and I think he's going to be really good. But going back to Xavier White and Chadarius Townsend, you're going to see them lined up all over the formation. They're going to be used as kind of like factor backs, X factor kind of guys. So you like that. And I know people want to hear about the quarterback position and the competition. And, it is a 3-horse race, but then again, it's not. I really think Tyler Shuck and Donovan Smith is going to come from there. Baron Morton is going to get a look, and all three look good, throwing with just helmet and jerseys on. And they all have very big arms. They all have nice touch on deep balls. They all have at least a little bit of experience. Of course, Donovan Smith and Tyler Shuck have considerable experience. They both won big-time games, at the Power 5 level. And Baron Morton's one of the highest-rated guys you've ever recruited at Texas Tech, or at least in the modern era. So it's a legitimate competition, and it's going to dominate headlines this spring football. But I'm really interested to see how it plays out, just like everybody else. All of them look good, like I said. In spring ball, it's not like they're going to be touched anyway, so there's only so much you can see from them. Zach Kitley, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. One note I had from spring ball was, he's not shy to get after people who run the wrong route or aren't ready for a rep, what have you, aren't getting upfield fast enough. That's really big for him, is to get upfield quickly, to create space, obviously for them, against DBs, but also for other receivers running routes underneath. So he was really, that was something he harped on. But I think overall, they're going to have recruits. They had a couple out to start the spring ball. They're going to have some more this weekend and throughout spring ball, of course, in the spring game coming up in late April. I think April 22nd is the spring game at the Jones. But there's going to be a lot of recruits. There's going to be a lot of development or a lot of movement in terms of the depth chart, I believe, because there's some spots like quarterback competition. The quarterback competition is going to be huge. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it should dominate headlines, but I'm also interested to see what happens at center, because there's 3 or 4 guys in the mix there, and it's going to be interesting, because that's obviously a really important position. Stephen Hamby, former center on that great 2008 team, told me in a recent press conference that that's near and dear to his heart, and he's going to find a player to lock down and anchor that offensive line after Dawson Deaton, of course, moved on following last season. He's entered his name in the NFL draft. So that guy was a 3-year starter at center. That's a big hole, to fill. But I think they have some guys who can do it. I think one guy who isn't talked about as much to watch there, I know they brought in a lot of guys via the transfer portal, but one returning vet who I really like is Clayton Franks. Because I think if he doesn't start, he'll end up being in the 2 deep at center. That's my opinion. And he looked really good last spring. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but this was just the first practice. They haven't even hit yet. I can't wait for that. The next practice, I believe, is either Friday or Saturday. The next practice is closed to media, and I'm going to be in San Francisco covering the basketball team, of course. But I believe next week, or the 3rd practice or the 4th practice, one of those is going to be open. So I hope to be at that next week when I'm back from San Francisco. But in the meantime, Double T Farmer, Stephen Chapman, our great photographer, post some pics from the first spring practice. They're really good. Check them out. And then Mighty Joe Yeager was at the post-practice availability. He has notes from what Coach McGuire said following the first practice, beginning the Joey McGuire era in terms of real practice, a spring football practice. So some really good stuff from Mighty Joe there. So check that out on Inside the Red Raiders. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.